Imagine you're standing in a crowded room. Nothing is wrong. No danger, no threat. Then, somewhere near the front, one single person suddenly screams and starts running. You don't know why. You haven't seen a threat. But I'd bet you're already moving before you've even decided to. That's not really a choice. That's a brain function. And it's one of the strangest, fastest spreading forces in human behavior, faster in some documented cases than any virus could ever travel. In July of 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the street and started to dance, alone, no music, no celebration. She danced for days without stopping until her feet were bloody. Within a week, 30 more people joined her. Within a month, historical records suggest the number had grown past 400 people, all dancing uncontrollably, some reportedly until they collapsed from exhaustion, and according to some accounts, a number of them died. No music, no instructions, no explanation anyone at the time could agree on, just one person's behavior, spreading through an entire city like something contagious. Historians now call this the Dancing Plague of 1518, and it remains one of the most well-documented cases of something scientists call mass psychogenic illness, a real, physical, observable outbreak of symptoms with no biological cause at all. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This wasn't a one-time historical oddity. It has happened again and again in completely different cultures, centuries apart. In 1962, in a girls' boarding school in Tanganyika, now Tanzania, students began laughing, not lightly, uncontrollably, for hours. The laughter spread from student to student until the school was forced to shut down. It didn't stop there. As affected students returned to their home villages, the laughing epidemic spread with them, eventually affecting over 1,000 people across multiple schools and villages, lasting more than a year in some areas. Laughter, spreading like an outbreak. Not because of any virus, any toxin, any shared meal, just from person to person, brain to brain. So here's the real question underneath all of this. How does an emotional or physical state jump from one nervous system into another with no physical contact required at all? The answer connects directly to something we've covered before on this channel: mirror neurons. Remember, your brain doesn't just observe someone else's emotional state. It quietly begins to replicate a small version of it internally, almost as if it were your own. Now scale that up. Put one anxious, panicking person in a crowd of 100 people. Each nearby brain begins mirroring that panic, even faintly, and each of those brains is now radiating a slightly more intense signal outward to the people around them. It's not just one person spreading fear to a crowd, it's a chain reaction, person to person to person, each link making the signal slightly stronger than the last. Researchers have actually measured this directly. In experiments tracking heart rate and skin conductance across groups, when one person shows visible signs of fear or stress, nearby individuals' bodies begin to physiologically synchronize within seconds, heart rates rising together, stress hormones rising together, without anyone saying a single word. Your body isn't just reacting to a shared threat. In many of these cases, there is no threat. Your body is reacting to another human body's reaction. That's the entire chain. And here's a twist that makes this even stranger. Fear spreads through crowds noticeably faster than positive emotions do. Studies on emotional contagion across social networks have found that negative, high-arousal emotions, fear, anger, disgust, propagate faster and further than calm, positive ones. Your nervous system appears to have evolved to prioritize catching someone else's alarm over catching someone else's joy, which makes brutal evolutionary sense. In a group of early humans, someone else's terror was often the very first warning of a predator, long before you could see or hear the danger yourself. The humans who caught that fear fastest survived to pass on the exact wiring that made them catch it. In other words, the same system that made an entire dance floor collapse from exhaustion in 1518 is a slightly overactive version of the exact system that once kept your ancestors alive. Let's fast forward past medieval Europe, past 1960s Tanzania, into something far more recent and far closer to home. In 2011, in the small town of Leroy, New York, a group of high school students, mostly teenage girls, began developing sudden, involuntary tics and verbal outbursts. No shared toxin was ever found, no infection, no environmental cause was ever confirmed despite extensive testing. Doctors eventually diagnosed many of the cases as conversion disorder, spread through the same social and psychological contagion mechanisms as the historical cases before it, except this time amplified by something the residents of Strasbourg or Tanganyika never had: social media. Videos of the symptoms spread online, and some researchers believe the visibility of those videos may have actually accelerated the spread among viewers who were never even in the same room as the original cases. Which means the very same contagious panic system that once required people to be physically near each other may no longer need physical proximity at all. Pause on that for a second. If fear and physical symptoms can now spread through a screen instead of a room, what does that mean for anxiety, panic, and stress in an age where nearly everyone is constantly watching everyone else? This isn't only about health symptoms either. This same emotional contagion machinery drives something far larger: financial panic. Bank runs historically weren't usually caused by an actual shortage of money. They were caused by the fear that other people were panicking, which triggered your own panic, which triggered the next person's, until an entire bank collapsed, sometimes within a single day. Stock market crashes follow disturbingly similar patterns. Analysts have long noted that panic selling can spread through a trading floor, and now through global markets, far faster than the actual underlying financial data would ever justify on its own. In other words, the same wiring that made 400 people dance themselves into exhaustion in 1518 is quietly present every time a market crashes faster than the numbers alone can explain. Here's the part that starts to feel almost frightening once you notice it. None of the people involved in any of these events, the dancers, the laughing students, the teenagers in Leroy, the panicked traders, believed they were just following a crowd. Every single one of them experienced their own fear, their own laughter, their own symptoms as completely real, completely personal, and completely their own. Which means in the exact moment it's happening to you, contagious panic never feels like contagion. It feels like your own fully independent reaction to something real. There is some good news buried inside all of this, though, because emotional contagion doesn't only spread fear. Researchers have documented the same contagious mechanism spreading calm. In several crisis situations, a single visibly calm, steady individual has been shown to measurably reduce panic responses in the people directly around them. This is part of why trained first responders are taught to keep their voice, posture, and breathing deliberately steady in emergencies, not only for their own clarity, but because that calm is a signal, and signals spread. Which means the exact system responsible for 400 people dancing themselves into collapse is the same system a single calm person can use to quiet an entire panicking room. The wiring itself isn't good or bad, it's neutral, it's just contagious. What spreads through it depends entirely on what one person at the right moment chooses to broadcast. Think about the last time you walked into a tense room and instantly felt the tension before anyone said a word to you, or the last time one person's genuine laughter got an entire group laughing for no clear reason at all. That wasn't coincidence. That was this exact system, working exactly the way it's built to work, in a room you happen to be standing in, which brings us to the real, quiet truth hiding underneath everything we've covered today. Your emotional state in any given room was never entirely your own to begin with. Some portion of what you feel right now in any group of people was handed to you, passed along, brain to brain, faster than words, faster than reason, faster than you could ever consciously catch it happening. And the unsettling part is this: you will likely never be able to fully tell in the moment which of your feelings were entirely yours, and which ones simply arrived from somebody else's nervous system wearing your name. 400 people danced themselves into exhaustion in a city square 500 years ago, utterly convinced it was their own choice. And the exact same system that moved their feet is running quietly in you, in every room you will ever stand in for the rest of your life. If this changed how you think about the last time you caught someone else's mood without realizing it, that's exactly what this channel is about. The invisible systems quietly running your everyday experience without ever asking your permission. Before you go, think back to the last room you were in with other people. Try to remember whose mood were you actually feeling in that room, yours or someone else's, passed to you before you even noticed the handoff. Tell me in the comments about a time you caught someone else's panic, calm, or laughter without meaning to. Subscribe if you want more of these, because the next one might reveal a system in your own mind you've never once noticed running.